And I am excited about being here. Rox, look, she all the way on 20 already. If you're not excited because she got excited, then something must be wrong with you. But good morning, good morning. Again, happy birthday, Dr. Dot. I hope that you have enjoyed yourself, and happy birthday to all of the October birthdays that we may have missed. Just the fact that you're here is an amazing thing, and it's an amazing day. So, it's always so funny because Rox and I, we never talk about what songs are going to be selected, what is going to be done. Like, we never talk about any of that. And everything that she has been talking about literally is wrapped up into what I am going to be speaking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and put the disclaimer out that today is not going to be one of those, like, hoorah, you might have some toes that are stepped on a little bit. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm sorry in advance for you. I didn't mean to do it, but I got to because that's just what God has put on my heart and what I feel, we have to be in. And so, this lesson today, if you were able to get the outline or that you were able to see it, you know that this one is titled that it's time to she. S.H.E. It's time to she. And as I was thinking about what it was that I wanted to be able to bring to everyone, there's been kind of like a resounding theme that I've been just in conversation with my sisters in Christ, also just in reflection in the things that are going on, and in this new space that God is giving me, and this new space that God is preparing me in, coming out of hurricane and then just getting into this new. I feel that we are, as women of God, we've gotten to this space of not really comprehending and understanding wholeheartedly what serving God is all about, and what being a servant of the Most High really is, and how that impacts everything in our everyday life. So when I say that it's time to she stands for it's time for us to serve Him every day. It's time for us to get into serving Him every single day. And so our focus verse that we are going to have is going to be Deuteronomy chapter 10, and the verse is going to be number 12. And it says, "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you? But to fear the Lord your God and to walk in obedience to Him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all of your soul." Now, I want to give you some context of where this is coming from. Now, this is a time frame when Moses and the Israelites, they're out and they're on this journey because they're trying to make it to the promised land, but because of their stubbornness and because of their ways, they are in this space of just kind of being and operating. And so Moses has to sit here and he has to remind the Israelites of their promise to God. It's almost like he had to remind them, look, you gave God something when He brought you out. You said that you wanted to come out of your hardship. You said you wanted to come out of your trial, and you have gone off of that. Like, you're not doing the things that God says for you to do. And so, because of that, I have to sit here and I got to remind you about what it is that we're supposed to do for the Lord Almighty. And so, this is where the scripture comes in, and He's giving them the reminders, letting them know, look, because you belong to God, and because God is you, and you are in this promise and in this covering with God Almighty, there is something for you. And there's something that I need for you to understand when it comes to you being able to have relationship with God. And so this is where it comes into us in our serving God, and how we have to have a heart and a spirit that is into serving God every single day in mind, body, and spirit. And so, if you are a note taker and you are trying to figure out, okay, where's my points? What do I need to do? How do I need to be here? Point number one that we are going to focus in on, and why this is important for us to get up, and it's time for us to and it's time for us to make sure that we're serving Him in everyday life. It starts, SisStars, with us fearing the Lord. I'm going to run that one back again. And it starts with you and I fearing the Lord. And you might be sitting here saying, okay, Tiffany, I serve God. I love God. You don't have to tell me about that. But I don't think that we truly understand what that means when we say that it's time for us to fear the Lord and to make sure that we're calling back and we're getting back into that swing of what it is we're supposed to do. Fearing the Lord is not being afraid of what God is or who he is. It's about us giving reverence to God. It's about us acknowledging God and his holiness and his authority over our lives. Psalm chapter 111 and verse number 10 says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow his precepts have good understanding. SisStar, if you want to get into a space where your life is starting to change and where you are starting to become different and you are wanting to get into this, I need my life to represent serving God every day, it starts with you having a healthy respect for God. Some of us are living our lives as if we don't have God watching over us. Some of us are acting out and showing out as if we don't know the God that we serve. And you might say, well, Tiff, I do know it. But if you really know it, then in your everyday living, you will be able to live that out. Roger did an amazing job of telling us about how we are in this covering and in this community with one another, and that we are in the places that we need to be. And because we have this placing, because we have all of these things that are here, our lifestyle, the way that you and I live, SisStars, each and every day, it should be reflecting a lifestyle of worship to God, and it should be reflecting a respect of God. Perhaps you may not be taking advantage of your prayer time. You may not be taking advantage of making sure that you understand the goodness of God. See, we walk around and we allow the enemy to dictate and tell us how we should or should not be. But the reality is that if we had that respect and that reverence for God, everything that we are, everything that we do, everything that we would be all about him. SisStar, I need you to understand that you are not your own. You are beautiful. You have been brought with a price. And because of that, there should be something different about you each and every single day that you wake up. Each and every single day that you have breath in your body, you should be understanding that's God. That's the God living in me. And I have to make sure that it starts with me having a mindset that says, I'm going to respect God with my living, with my talking, the essence of how I am, who I do, how I relate to people, what I say to people, how it comes off. All of that is how you have the reverence and the fear of the Lord, the respect to the God that we serve. I need you to ask yourself, when people see you and they see how you are responding, do they see someone who has a reverence of God in their life? Only you can answer that, not me. Point number two is that in this, after we establish this working and this reverence for God, it is time for us to walk in obedience. SisStars, obedience is the demonstration of our love for God and our trust in his ways. So many of us are navigating storms. So many of us are navigating hardships. So many of us are navigating things that have just been unprecedented in our lives, whether it's good or whether it may be a trying situation. But all of us are trying to get through something. But sisters, I need you to understand why obedience has to be the center of all that you do. John chapter 14 and verse number 15 says that if you love me, you're going to keep my commands. When we are talking about this walking in obedience, there are things that you and I have to do. We have to make a choice, SisStar. Each and every day, we have to make a choice about whether or not we are going to do what God tells us to do, if we are going to be who God calls us to be. And I'm here to tell you that in my talks and in everything that I've been going through with some of my other sisters and people who are just coming to me, we as women of God, we are failing. We are walking around and we're being phyllo wafers. For those of you who are bakers, a phyllo wafer is one of those like really small, thin, like crust that you can put creams, you can put, puddings and pies in. But one of the things that's so amazing about phyllo crust is that even though it has the capacity to be able to hold things and to hold a large amount, it's very thin and it's very frail. And it looks very hard and it looks like it can carry the weight of everything. But as soon as you put just a little bit of pressure, as soon as you put a knife, it all crumbles away and it goes. It looks good on the outside and it's so pretty and it's adorned decoratively, and your desserts or your pies or your whatever you put in, it looks amazing. But anytime that pressure is applied, it crumbles apart. And that's just a part of the appeal of that type of wafer. And some of us are being phyllo wafer sisters. We're looking real good. Our shells are looking really amazing, and we are looking beautiful. And it's amazing. People see us and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" But the moment that a little bit of pressure is applied, we're crumbling up and we're falling apart. And we're falling apart because we're not walking in the obedience that God has called us to do. Sisters, it takes God 24/7, like 24/7, God works for us, right? And you and I, we come into these spaces and we want God to give us 24/7 blessings. We want the maximum blessings that He can give us, but we're putting in the minimal effort to make sure that we're reverencing God. We're doing minimal efforts because when it comes to those trials and those situations and those hardships, we reverse back to, "Oh, woe is me. Oh, I don't know what it is. Why is this happening? What's going on?" Or when that person that we thought we were okay with comes and they say something the wrong way, we ready to blast off and we go off and we speak things of our mouth that should not be. Sometimes, sister, you and I are being out of the obedience factor that God has. See, when you're obedient to God, you have a trust level in Him that is far above what everybody else has. Everybody else can be going through the same type of trials and circumstances, but you, sister, because of the love that you have for God and the reverence that you have for Him, that respect factor that you have for Him, your outlook, your response, your return on whatever is happening should be a lot different because you are walking in the alignment. See, obedience says, "I will trust you no matter what comes my way. I'm going to hold who I am and remember what I'm supposed to be each and every day, despite what it might look like, despite how it might come off, despite how it may be." See, God is saying, if you love me, you're going to keep my commands, and you're going to keep my commands because of the reverence that you have for me. But sisters, how many times do we give in to what the enemy wants? We give in to the fear. We give in to the not being who we're supposed to be. We give in to not allowing God be God in our lives. Y'all remember my definition of trust, right? It's putting your full weight in God and believing that He can handle it all. Rox gave an amazing example of that. Here she is at this conference experiencing something that she's never had before, having an amazing time, being just uplifted. And then trial comes, enemy says, "Oh, she's too high. She's too happy. Let me see if I can throw her off." And Rox said, "Yeah, I shedded a little tear because this is something that I have to continue to go through. But I wiped my tear and I said, okay, but God, I navigated through it and I'm going to still go through, and I'm not going to allow this situation to deter me from being able to give my all." Sisters, life is going to happen. Life is lifing. But are you willing to stand on what you believe and who you believe in? It's time for us to serve Him every day, and you serve Him with a reverence and a respect for Him because He is God all by Himself, and He's a God that never changes and that will never give up and will never disappoint because He's always going to be and will always be. And we have to walk in that obedience of loving God and knowing Him wholeheartedly. Point number three is that when you have that respect for God and when you're saying that you're going to walk in obedience, AKA trusting in God, the next thing that you have to do is that you got to love Him. Our love for God fuels our desire to serve Him and to honor Him. First John chapter 4 and verse 19 says, we love because God loved us, or first loved us, excuse me. God didn't have to love us, sister. Like, do you understand that He didn't have to? But He chose to. And not only that, but He chose to give His one and only Son, the perfect one, the one who did no harm, the one who didn't even have to. He was sitting, he was doing well, but because of the love God has, He was able to make you and I more precious than what we could ever imagine. And sisters, I think that as we go through life, we are not understanding that we are chosen. We are operating and walking as if we have the ability to do things or not do things. But I need you to understand that you were chosen. See, when you walk around with the mindset that says, I was chosen and that I am picked apart and that I'm not like everybody else, that my God has something more in store for me and that He destined me and He predestined me for all that it's supposed to be for me, you walk and you do life a little bit differently. We have a different aspect and a different mindset when we're doing this thing called life. And it begins with us being able to have a love for Him. And the way that you love Him, sister, is by making sure that you are daily having connection with Him. And your daily connection with Him is when you pray. Some of us ain't using our prayers. We're not using it, sisters. We are sitting here and we'll pray when times get hard. We'll pray when, oh, there's a circumstance or something is going on, but it should be something that we're using, not just when we wake up in the morning, not just when we thank you, God, for waking me up. No, every moment, every chance that you have in the day, you should be praying. You should be saying, God, I thank you for this opportunity. Remember, I talked about the blessing and the present. We're supposed to be praising Him despite the circumstances, despite whatever else might be going on. You show your love for Him by having that communication and that communion with the sweet God from up above. And then not only that, but you are able to honor and to love God by the way that you worship. Sister, I need you to understand that you are worship. Yes, we have been taught that when we come together, collectively on our Sundays and we're all together, that is our worship. And yes, it is a form of worship. It's a corporate worship. But when you recognize that you are worship and that everything that you do is how you worship, you understand that when we come together, we are really assembling and there is a connection and there is a movement and a transference of spiritual energy that happens when we come together and we're working in one accord. And so when we get here to your Sunday assemblies and when you get there together, that's when everyone is in their worship mode and they have been working on having a respect for God. They've been working on walking in their obedience. And because of their love for God and wanting to tell God, God, I thank you for who you are in my life. I thank you for the position that you placed me in. When you come to assembly, we all come together, that energy, that worship that we have together, it transcends and it moves. So then when you're going through and I'm going through, but I can see you and you're smiling at me and we're smiling back to each other and we love and we have that reverence and we're giving it to God. That's how we worship, sisters, and that's how God gets glorified and that's how He gets magnified. And when those who don't know who God is, they see us in our assembly and they see that there's love and they see that we're showing love and we have that reverence for the God who is the great I am, they get pricked and they get moved in their hearts and they want to understand what is it that makes these people of God different? What is it that makes them different? What is it that makes them claim out that they're willing to serve Him every day? What is it that is saying it's time for me to she? It's the love that we share together. But you don't get that if you're not focusing in on the love that you have for the God who has blessed you and has kept you. Look, I just made it through a hurricane, and look, it was a catastrophic one. But because of the love that I have for God, it says, Tiffany, you can't stop, you can't wail, you can't wallow in what may have been, what could have been, what might have been lost. You got to keep going, because the God that you serve, he's worthy and deserving of the respect. He's worthy of my worship. He's worthy of me making sure that I stay in the alignment and that I obey his will, because he's never left me and he's never failed me. It begins with understanding the love that you have for God, SisStar. And then point number 4 is that you have to serve the Lord with all your heart and with all of your soul. SisStars, we have to be in a mindset that says everything about me is going to be about what I can bring and what I can do for God. Serving God is expressed by the way that you are devoted to him. SisStar, does your life show that you are devoted to living out loud for God? Or does it show that you're okay with living for God when things are going good and when things are okay? But the moment that trials happen, the moment that you're faced with temptation, the moment that you're faced with having to, who am I going to stand? You go off and you do what the enemy wants you to. He makes you feel defeated. He makes you feel like you're not worthy. He makes you feel like you're not capable of being able to hand out. SisStars, I need you to understand that when it's time for us to she serving him every day, it is a lifestyle. You can't just pick it up and say, oh, I'm serving him now because it's convenient. I'm serving him because I got the time. You have to be in this space of, I'm serving him because that's what I am here. I am purposed to be here for a reason. Colossians chapter 3 and verse number 23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. See, being a woman of God means that you are going to work whatever capacity you are in, because you know who you serve and who you belong to. See, that's why when we have that fear of the Lord, that respect factor of him, and then when we have that true love and devotion and we're walking in obedience, then that's why having a lifestyle of serving him, it shouldn't even be that a question. It's not going to be hard for us to do. It should be something easy for us to take on, because we understand what and who we are and who we serve. When you get that mindset, it becomes easier to navigate the storms of life. It becomes easy to get through the pressings and the trials and the tribulations that you are going through. It becomes easier. And I want us to understand that this lifestyle of being a child of God, this lifestyle of being called, is not just limited to like your certain church assembly or your church locale. Some of you had to go through, all of us were brought together because of pandemic, right? And a lot of churches and places that used to be are just no longer there. And you found yourself in limbo. And for a lot of Christians who were underneath that kind of mindset that if I'm not attached to something or a body, that I'm not useful or I don't have a place, or even church dynamics now, even with us coming back together, they're different. And so a lot of people who used to be in charge of a lot of things and a lot of programs, you just don't have it, because people just aren't doing corporate settings like they used to, and they're just not showing up. And for a lot of Christians, it has made them feel as if they're insignificant. But I want you to understand that in this essence of sheep and this essence of serving him every day, you have to understand that when you make serving God and understanding who he is in your life a lifestyle, wherever you go, you can be of service. I live outside of where I attend church, like literally, because I have a bridge, it only takes me like maybe 35, sometimes 40 minutes, depending on traffic. Now, if the bridge is shut down, it would take me an hour and some change for me to get to where I worship. And I don't always have the capacity to be here like I used to because my lifestyle has changed. My kids' schedules are different, and it just doesn't allow me to be able to be here. And sisters, I was under the impression because before my kids' lifestyles changed, I was able to come and I was able to be here when we had ladies' class and when we had Bible classes, when anything else was going on throughout the week, I was able to make it. But I can't do that anymore. And I felt bad at one point, thinking, man, I'm not able to do and be in that capacity and I can't be there. And so now maybe I'm not, worthy of the blessings that God has for me. I can't show up like I used to. But guess what? God had to remind me, Tiffany, I love you and you are mine. And this whole world, everything that you interact with, it is my kingdom. And you are supposed to make sure that you are taking my message to all that you come in contact with. So guess what Tiff does? I can't get to the locale that I come to with everyone, but I can get online and I can hop on devotions. And when other sisters from all over are needing encouragement or inspiration, guess what? I'm in their Bible classes. I'm there. I'm fellowshipping with them. Guess what? I have people who live in my community who don't really know my faith. And guess what I get to do? I get to share something with them. I get to inspire them on a daily basis and let them know about the goodness of God and how if I can make it through, you can get through. I am serving in my community spaces. All of you have a gifting. Each and every single one of us has something that God has blessed us with. Maybe your ministry is not being upfront and doing. Maybe you're the behind the scenes person. You can cook a meal and make sure that it gets to someone. You can get somebody to give it out. That's you showing the love and the essence of God. You show and you're serving who you are. We've got people who are all around us in your neighborhood, in your children's schools, in your grandchildren's schools, wherever you may be, you're showing up. You having a lifestyle that says, I love God and I love Him with everything that is within me. And I won't stop and I won't be who you are on the job. Just your presence and just your essence can be serving to God. People will see chaos and turmoil on the workplace, but you could be that one person who brings in peace and says, it's going to be okay. It's not that serious. It's going to be all right. We're going to get through it. You can be that source of encouragement for all those who are around, for all of us who may be in school, wherever it is. There's no excuse for you not to be able to show God. There's no excuse for you not to be able to show the love of God and who He is. We're in a whole entire sisterhood. There are women who are in your groups that you can say, you know what, we're going to hold each other accountable. And I'm going to call on you. I'm going to check on you. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to be there for you. Rocks charges us every single Sunday morning that this is your community. You got to take advantage of it. And we do that by being there for one another, checking in on one another. We all live in different places and different aspects. But when we understand that I am having the power of she, I'm serving Him every day, that I can be effective no matter the cost, no matter where I'm at. I can do what I do, and God is going to be pleased. Sisters, it is time for us to wake up, and it's time for us to understand that we have to have a serving attitude and we have to have the reverence for God. If we had that, our lives would be better. We will be able to handle circumstances and everything better than what we have been in. I want us all to understand that it's time for us to shift our mindset, shift our perspective, and get into a place of being able to serve Him every day. And you serve Him by having the fear of Him. You serve Him by loving Him. You serve Him by understanding who He is. And you serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul. Don't you stop, sister. Don't you give in because it's a little difficult, because life circumstances may have thrown you off. You are special. You have an essence that's about you. And I want you to be able to serve Him every day. You are she, and she is living inside of each and every single one of us. That is the lesson that I have for us on today. I know we went over. I apologize, everyone. But I do have some questions for you as you get ready to go into your breakout groups. And I want you to just ask yourself, how can I cultivate a deeper fear of the Lord or respect of God in my life? In what areas do I need to call for obedience? What things have I been out of alignment? What things do I need to say, you know what, God, I'm going to trust you with everything wholeheartedly? What are you still holding on to that God is saying, I need you to get rid of? How has God's love transformed your understanding of what service is? And then, sisters, what are some ways that you're going to go and you're going to be able to serve God every day wholeheartedly? Take that in your groups. For those who do have to leave, I want you to be blessed. I want you to be able to walk through, but I'm challenging us, sisters, to be better than what we have been. And I'm challenging you to serve him every single day. Rox, I turn it over to you.
Lord have mercy. Lord